FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried has had his campaign finance charge dropped due to clerical errors between the U.S. and the Bahamian government in order to honor his extradition terms. Now, despite the fact that the former crypto mogul was one of America's biggest political donor, he still faces a long list of financial charges with a court date set in October. Here to react, White Collar Advice co-founder Justin Paperny. Justin, great to have you on. So the campaign finance charge has been dropped. How much of that do you think has to do with the fact that he was the biggest Democrat donor?
I don't think it has a great deal to do with that, but rather the U.S. Attorney Damian Williams and the totality of what he expects Bankman-Fried to get in prison. It was just easier to drop the charge, which only had a cap of 60 months. It enables him to focus on the larger scheme, the losses in victims. So he wanted to move on from that. As a former federal defendant, I know it's good to get some small wins, and I'm sure his lawyers told him this is a good win. But in the totality of what he is facing, it doesn't change much.
So you think he's not going to actually get off in the end? What's he facing right now? What is his team going through? What do they need to do to help him? And what do you expect to be the outcome?
They could potentially bury him underneath that prison if he's convicted. What his lawyer should do is help him understand how his choices, like witness tampering, not accepting responsibility, how it's exacerbating his struggles. They should help him understand what the U.S. attorney wants, which is convictions to look good on television, to advance his career, to let victims know that he is doing his job. He's making it about himself. But guess what? Nobody cares about Sam Bankman-Fried. People care about the victims, and until he begins to identify with them, begin to memorialize his journey and work, defendants should work instead of living in their mansions and outsourcing all of the work to lawyers. Until he does that, he's going to continue to have a lot of struggles. The number one goal for defendants is simple. Do not make matters worse. He has not embraced that concept.
Well, fair enough on that, but let's be real. I mean, a lot of people believe this whole thing was a way to launder money and send money to Democrat politicians. What do you think about that?
Well, based on what I've read, and there's a lot of truth to that. Money laundering, you're trying to make dirty money look clean through complex schemes that make it very difficult for the government to ferret out this fraud. And he has his right to go to trial, and we'll see what happens. But once the evidence comes out, and it might be pretty clear that his choices are going to come back to bite him. And it's unfortunate he's not making decisions that could try to get him on a path to not get 50 or 100 years in prison, but 10 or 20. President Trump signed the First Step Act, which could significantly shorten how much time he serves in prison. More prison reform is coming. So while Governor DeSantis wants to repeal the First Step Act, we believe more reform is coming. So he should make decisions that say, okay, if I get 10 or 20 years in prison, what does that mean? It's not like when I was serving my sentence 10 or 15 years ago without this reform. He should understand that he can make decisions that could get him home earlier. He could build a new business, have a family. Instead, he's going down the Elizabeth Holmes path of blaming, excusing, outsourcing the work to lawyers. And I know, because I served time in federal prison, most defendants come to regret that planning, and we cannot go back and undo it.
Yeah, I just think he's young, and he had so many friends in powerful places, and he probably still is believing they're going to come and save him because he did so much for them. But we shall see. Really interesting speaking with you about this. You certainly have a very firsthand experience and knowledge on this. So thank you for joining us this morning.
It's good to be back on Fox. Thank you.
You got it.